I actually am fearing Auburn coming off this bye week, Blake. And
I am
look,
too. They're going
I
to run the football. They're going to run the football right at you.
Yeah, so for me, Blake, Peyton Thorne was a really, really good quarterback at Michigan State.
Was he?
This is what is very interesting.
You know what he did? He threw Keon Coleman right, Keon Coleman left. That was his offense.
And even more so, Jayden Reed, who's a rookie quarterback for the Packers, a rookie quarterback, rookie wide receiver.
Number 11.
Yeah, so what's interesting is they were high school teammates since the 7th grade. They've never played competitive football without one another. And so overall, Auburn's pass catchers, not the strongest group, but you're right. Running the football is where they're really good. Their zone read game has been very good with Peyton Thorne this year. But what is really interesting about them, Blake, is their defense, especially in the secondary, is really good. Jalen Simpson, to me, Blake, has been the best safety in the SEC this year.
And Donovan Kaufman's not a slouch either.
Yeah, and as you know, Louisiana guy. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough, but super excited because we got to enjoy these Auburn matchups, man. They're going to be they're not going to be annual
next year.
Right. They're not going to be annual anymore. Now, what's really interesting, and we'll talk about the Missouri game here in a second, but what is very weird about Auburn since 2016, LSU has vastly underperformed their season averages on offense every single year since 2016. And that includes last year and 2019 LSU, where LSU had two of their worst offensive games of the season. Technically, LSU in 2019 had their worst offensive game of the season versus Auburn. And then in 2022, LSU had their worst offensive game of the season, in my mind, versus Auburn. And they honestly need to be ready for it because this game is always tough.
And they're coming off a bye.
Yeah, and Blake, I think that's actually one of the biggest reasons why. Because normally, you got to think of it in terms of rest, right? The Auburn game is played before the Alabama game, okay? What is always before the Alabama game? A bye week. Auburn historically has had an earlier bye week. So they're just fresher going into that game. And where it's really showed up, Blake, if you look at this LSU-Auburn matchup over the years, is in the trenches. It's really difficult. It's every year. I don't know how Auburn every year has good defensive linemen, but they do. And
they got it again this year.
Yeah. So
I mean, brother, they gave Georgia and Texas A&M everything that they wanted. If they had even the slightest offensive pulse, I don't think that they're as far away as Hugh Freeze makes it sound to be.
Right. Yeah.
They're not.
No.
They're not that far away, buddy.
I'm totally with you. And I understand that.
It's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game. I really do. To your point, this line opened up at 13. It's all the way down to 11 now. So it's going to be hard for me to see this game not being competitive, even though, as you pointed out, Peyton Thorne's not been accurate. And Auburn in a Power 5 game this year, Blake, has not thrown for over 100 yards at all in a single Power 5 game. And that actually dates back to last year. The last 5 Power 5 games this team has played, they have struggled. They have really struggled throwing the football. So
they don't have a 100-yard passer, which watch them do it against LSU.
If there were a defense to do it against, it would be this one.
Now, all right, let's go into Missouri because I think it's good for context to talk about this team offensively and defensively. Let's start offensively. I'm going to get your thoughts on Jayden Daniels. But, Carter, you and I had a discussion on Monday about what can be done to help this defense. And I said I think that they need to take air out of the football. And quite honestly, I mean, they ran the ball at a much higher rate than they had been, and they ran the ball more effectively than they had all year long. I don't think that they can. I don't think they're going to be able to do that this week. I think Jayden's going to have to go off again because I don't think you can bleed the clock on this one. Because if you do, you're going to have a couple 3-and-outs in there. Look, if Georgia can't push them around, I'm not saying you can't. But look, you're talking about a front seven in Auburn. Look, goodness gracious, great balls of fire. I just think that was a strategy for this week to help your defense. What says you were? I know you didn't agree with that, but are you pleased that they tried to do that even though it wasn't working?
Yeah, so I felt obviously LSU ran the football very good. A lot of it was Logan. Blake, I know you'd love offensive line play more than anyone else. I think to me, the biggest thing from LSU has been the play of their guards. I know Emory Jones got offensive lineman of the week, and obviously Will Campbell's still playing at a high level, but we expected those guys to be great. The biggest difference has been the guards for LSU. I mean, Miles Frazier has played lights out. You see little things in his game where he's improved since the Florida State atrocity where he was bad. And since then, he has been fan-freaking-tastic. I've been very impressed. And Garrett Dellinger has been really good for LSU lately. And to your point on Twitter, they needed to be because DJ Chester was a true freshman in a very tough environment. He did a really good job just getting the snaps home and just getting us through this game. So if for some reason Charles Turner can't play, especially as you mentioned, Auburn, they're really good. Honestly, on all three levels of the defense, they're really solid. If LSU's got to play DJ Chester this weekend, hopefully that is not the case. I hope Charles Turner's back. But if that's not the case, you're going to need those guards to continue playing at a high level like they have been. But, you mentioned Jayden Daniels. There really is nothing else that you could say at this point. He's so incredible. I mean, you witnessed one of the best months, not only of any quarterback at LSU, of any offensive player. He had one kind of sort of rough half, and that was that first half versus Arkansas. Everything else, he's been lights out. He's been absolutely lights out at the most difficult position with bad penalties, drops, some shaky situations, absolutely ridiculous runs. He's playing at an all-time great level right now, and you got to tip your hat. That goes to Jayden lovers, Jayden haters. I don't think anyone ever expected this 4-game run being as transcendent as it has been. Now, the only thing, Blake, that I'll bring up here is how that game ended. LSU that was not a good decision to go 13 personnel at the end of the game. And to me, Blake, the biggest things in life are not necessarily avoiding bad plays, but avoiding disastrous ones. And the two biggest plays to me of the game that aren't being talked about was Garrett Nussmeier avoiding that sack after the bad snap. That was such a good play. And Jayden Daniels recovering that fumble at the end. Those two plays obviously change it for Missouri, and avoiding disastrous plays versus Auburn is going to be key as well.
All right, Carter, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Can you?
All right, we're having some internet issues, but
no, it's all good.
Okay. Heisman discussion. He's got to be in it, right? Like, we're not being biased on this, are we?
No. He should be the front runner. He should be the guy. I understand Caleb Williams is right there. It's one of those two guys at this point. I can hear an argument for a few others, but if you're not picking one of those two guys, sure, there's plenty others that deserve consideration. Most notably, Michael Penix, Bo Nix to a certain degree. And obviously, there's still a lot of football to be played, but Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels are on a different planet right now, if you ask me.
He's just so good, Carter. He's just so good. And quite honestly, I don't know if you're not 2-3 without him.
Yeah, you're in a lot of trouble if you don't have Jayden.
You're in a lot of trouble. And right. Look, what's crazy is when Garrett came in, I felt like the fan base is like, shit, we're in trouble. We might be in trouble. Now, let me ask you this. It's not just with his arm that he's doing it, Carter. He can beat you anywhere. I mean, what he's doing with his legs, my God. Like, my God, dude. Like, both of those runs, I think that more than the touchdown run, because of how critical it was, the touchdown run is just Heisman worthy. The run that he had for 14 yards on that 3rd and 11 saved your game and saved your season.
No, a total agreement. Yeah.
And so, I look at Jayden and think to myself, like, God dang, man, if he just – I hope we run the table to some degree so that he's in New York. I'm not saying for him to win it because there's a long season to go, but we'll see. Thoughts on the defense?
Yeah, one final thing on Jayden is the runs are great, and you're right, it's Lamar level. If you're not putting him on Lamar's level when it comes to running, not as an overall player. Now, I don't know if anyone's on that level outside of Burrow and a few others, but right now he's playing on that level, so it's crazy. The one thing I love about Jayden is the anticipation, right? It's so much better. The mechanics are so much cleaner. I'm not a mechanics expert by any stretch of the imagination, but the anticipation's crazy right now, Blake. He is delivering. The BTJ throw was, to me, the sign of growth. It's not that he put the ball on the money, Blake. It's when he decided to throw the football. And look, ESPN actually gave you a side-by-side. You can go to my film study. You can see it for yourself. When Jayden released that ball, decided to release that ball, BTJ was still kind of in like the stem before the separation.
Yeah, he was in his break. Right.
So it's crazy, the anticipation that he's throwing with right now. But yes, defensively, Blake, you're watching the worst LSU defense of all time. This is worse than the 2020 unit because you kind of sort of have to keep in mind that we weren't trying different schemes with the 2020 unit. They were true sitting ducks. LSU is trying different schemes, right? And it's still not working. I understand that Brian Kelly, and Blake, I'm with Brian Kelly on nearly 90% of the things that he says, and he and I see the game very similar. But he's protecting his defense in the press conference. Now, I do agree with him that the defense played a lot better. And I do think when Harold Perkins' career is over, we'll look back at this Missouri game as a very underrated Perk game. But when
I thought it was one of his top 3 games of all time. Yes. I know Ole Miss and Arkansas, it's top 3 best games that he's played.
Yeah, it's actually number 2 for me behind Arkansas at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, why is it for you?
Yeah, well, it wasn't just the interception. I
thought his run fits were better. I thought he played fundamental fast football.
Right. And so we'll go through a few plays. The Luther Burden tackle in the open field on a reverse was huge. Then the 3rd and 4-0 blitz that they called, Perk affected that throw. If he didn't affect that throw, I think Brady Cook would have been able to throw a better ball to Burden, who was one-on-one versus Major Burns, and we know how that probably is going to end up if it's a good throw. Then after sprinting down Brady Cook on the next field goal, I've gotten pushback on this.
You think he blocked it?
No, I don't think he blocked it. I do think he affected it. Okay.
Oh, no question.
I Zapruder filmed this for about 30 minutes. Okay, I'm telling you. And I think he affected it because if you look at all the field goals, so Mevis is one of the best kickers in the country, and he's kicking at home, okay? None of the kicks that he had were clean. None of them. And I do think Harold Perkins affected all 3 of them because on all 3 of them, the only constant was Perk getting a great jump and getting in his periphery, okay? And in order to do that, you've got to lay out. So you got Perk sprinting all these different directions, and then on special teams, putting his body on the line for the team. Those little things, sometimes go unnoticed. And now he's in a groove now. And I think we're going to start seeing more of him being Harold Perkins of old, but it's going to look a little bit different.
Two things. Number one, here's what drives me insane. Why in the outright F was your initial game plan to put a safety on Luther Burden that far off the ball? If you're going to play that far off the ball on him, I'm like, okay, I understand it. He could kill you. But you put Andre Sam on him to open the game, and it almost lost you the game. Now, Carter, they ran I don't care what I know I got pushback on this from the staff today. We didn't really run a cover 2. Yes, you did. Harold Perkins' pick is cover 2. Watch Cy Alexander. I know 1,000% it's cover 2. I asked the player, what was it? Cover 2. Well, why? Okay. Bottom line is, Carter, after that first quarter, they gave up 17 points and looked pretty okay.
Yeah.
Did the Perkins interception really just change some things?
It did, but I will also say this, Blake, and I know this is going to sound very weird, but I saved it for your show. Your best defense is sometimes
turnovers, confidence,
and an elite quarterback. Brady Cook shrunk after that first quarter. He wasn't stepping up. He wasn't stepping up in the pocket. He was staring down his receivers. He got too Luther Burden heavy. Both of his interceptions were him staring down Luther Burden and throwing right at you. And sometimes, when a quarterback like him, who's good but not great, is in a quarterback duel, you feel the pressure, and he crumbled. And there were open receivers that he was missing. So even though Brady Cook's stats look great, the difference in quarterback play was astonishing because Missouri's defense, Blake, is actually good. Okay, LSU's
they were the number 1 rush defense in the SEC going into that game.
And not only that, their secondary is really talented. Right. And Brady Cook was supposed to tear up LSU's defense. Jayden Daniels just outperformed him. So sometimes when you have such elite quarterback play, it does put pressure on the other quarterbacks. And you did see Brady Cook get ruffled back there trying to make too many things happen. And you saw him staring down Burden when there was other options. Now, he did have some drops go against him, but to the LSU defensive side of things, Blake, the run fitting isn't good.
No.
You were right last year. You predicted Cy Alexander would be the best corner. He is, but it's kind of by default at this point. All the other cornerbacks, Blake, are not good. They're really, really, really not good. It says something that they rolled with Sage Ryan at corner, who wasn't good versus Missouri.
Over Denver Harris.
Yes, and the staff didn't give all the other corners a chance. So
I don't think that they feel that comfortable that Denver is going to do his job. You know why? Because Brian Kelly came out today in his press conference and said, you know what Sage Ryan is? Reliable. Carter, he used the R word, reliable. He you know what? He wasn't saying anything because, look, he lying his ass off about Sage Ryan. That's a bold-faced lie. You know what he's doing? He's talking to Denver.
Exactly. And that is very concerning. It is really concerning. And, Blake, I'm to the point now where you really got to start just thinking about whatever you could potentially do. I'm open to more Ashton Stamps at this point. I just am. I'm open to Jeremiah Hughes, Jeremiah's family. I know him as well. I understand that. I've acknowledged that, but I'm not just saying that because I know his people. It's just the point. You give him a chance. He went up against Zachariah Branch in practice.
I mean, here's another thing. Even if it's not Jeremiah, who what's up with Toviano?
It's weird. It's so weird to me.
You get what I'm saying? Like, what's up with Tove?
Give him a chance at this point. But then again, it's tough. I don't know if there is any fixing. And one thing I'm going to do right now, Blake, is I am going to defend Andre Sam just a bit here. He had a rough game again. But to your point a minute ago, putting Andre Sam on Luther Burden, what corner do we want to shadow him at this point? I mean, I don't know if there's anybody on our team that can cover anybody right now. And I think Andre Sam is worn down because he's had to cover so much ground, covering for this missed tackle, that missed tackle, this missed tackle, that missed tackle. So I think some of the other deficiencies in the secondary are putting a lot of pressure on a guy that was playing really well. So hopefully some things change on the back end, Blake. Swinson's helping out, getting some good rush. Good to see Mason Smith make a few plays here or there. But they're going to need to get better at shedding blocks, all those things for this defense to
Well,
work.
and you know what else? Why Missouri got away from running the football is abysmal.
Yeah.
Eli Drinkwitz, if we were Missouri, we'd say, why didn't you run the football more? They did put in Deshaun Womack more on those rush downs on the Mason Smith sack. If Mason wouldn't have been there, Deshaun Womack would have been. Okay, that's one. But Carter, how do you explain the 17 points in the last three quarters?
Once again, some of it was bad QB play, but honestly,
but it really, they were making stops though.
Yes, honestly, a lot of it is Harold Perkins. I really do mean it. Like, if you rewatch the game closely, you can start seeing him feel more confident. He's not playing on his heels. He's being himself out there. It looks like he's having fun. He's flying around. He's that big of a needle mover, honestly. And look, I've been very as has everyone, but I've been very praiseworthy of Harold Perkins and how much he changes things. It's no coincidence that the defense had their best, half of football in quite a while when he got going, when he got comfortable. The Arkansas game was rough for him, outside of the final sack at the end of the second quarter. And the Ole Miss game was a little bit better. And now he is starting to really turn the corner. And I also think, Whit Weeks is doing some great things as well. So hopefully those things continue, Blake. And I say that because Jarquez Hunter is a great running back for Auburn.
Yeah, Whit Weeks are going to get tested this week.
Yeah, Hunter's a tough matchup. He runs angry. He runs hard.
And he's fast, and that does not bode well for Weeks.
Yeah, and Schrader, the running back from Missouri, tore us up. He's speed is not his game. He is more.
My
Schrader,
God, was he hitting the hole fast though?
Yeah, Schrader is a Stephen Ridley type of back, and Jarquez Hunter is a little bit more, Darius Geis home run hitter capable. There were a few runs that Schrader had that Jarquez Hunter houses. So you got to be ready to make these touchdown saving tackles and make them convert in the red zone.
You know what I think? Going back to your Andre Salmon, if you can't hear me, just let me know.
No, I can hear fine. Yeah.
Okay. You know what? I felt like they thought against Andre Sam on Luther Burden.
What?
At least he'll tackle him.
Exactly.
Because he trailed him, Burden caught it, and Sam was there to make the play and tackle. He ain't gonna cover him, which you have no business whatsoever doing that. They put him. He was a lamb to the slaughter. You remember the movie Jurassic Park when they put the lamb in the cage with the T-Rex?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Andre Sam versus Luther Burden. I mean, it's just the truth. Carter, where do we go from here? Because here's the truth. There have been two quarterbacks in my lifetime that have been this good: Jayden Daniels and Joe Burrow. They don't fall off on trees.
No, I'm with you, man. I will say, the general LSU fan base, Blake, has made one point over and over, but it's just true. You can't waste these quarterback seasons when they're this great. The Ole Miss.
Even if you lost to Florida State, even if you were a top 50 defense, Carter, you're 4-1.
Yeah, I mean,
5-1.
Yeah, yes, 5. The Ole Miss game is won with a few DB tackles. That's all it took. That's all it took. The tackling really was that bad, and it cost them that dearly. I understand Matt House isn't the absolute best. Blake, as you know, when Matt House was rumored to be the LSU guy, I did a video. Wasn't the most glowing review. I always try to be as honest as I possibly can, and I was very skeptical.
Yeah, you didn't like him.
Yeah, I wasn't on fire about it.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things that concern me have shown up, obviously, this season. But I am going to defend him tonight, Blake. There's only so much you can do. And this kind of ties in what Brandon Taylor said on your show last week. You've got to just make tackles. That is the bare minimum. that is the first thing as a
Bro,
defense.
he spoke from the heart too.
Right. And I spoke to a former LSU DB as well about this. You just got to make plays. Yes, there are some coverage busts and there were some bad ones versus Ole Miss, but you've got to make plays. You've just got to tackle the guy in front of you. And the big thing, Blake, is tackling is hard. It's hard, but I'm going to make the same point I made last week that I'm going to do right now. If you can't bring him down, slow him down. If they run you over, so effing what? You slowed them down. That's part of the problem. Is it's not that LSU misses tackles, is they cleanly miss tackle. It would have been better if there was just air in front of them. Slow them down and gang tackle, and that helps.
When this secondary makes that sword celebration, I want to throw my remote at the TV.
The seatbelt,
I hate that shit.
Just
like, bro, you just gave up a 34-yard run and you had a batted pass. Stop. It pisses me off. It really does piss me off. And you know what's sad? I think the best DB, arguably, is Ryan Yates.
At this point, I'm fine with it.
Carter, he's always in coverage. He's always making a tackle, and he's assignment right. He's always assignment correct.
Yeah.
You can tell we talked about it today. Hey, he's got to be a little bit more aggressive, but I know he's going to be where he's supposed to be. And that is sad. That is sad that you have to ask him to come in here, and that's sad. Is Ryan Yates going to be a good player? Probably, but he has in a team like LSU, he has no business having to have that responsibility. His playing time and start should be off of merit, not out of necessity, right? Like,
yeah,
well, he's a good player. We're going to give him some snaps. Okay, sounds good. But the defenses of old, Matthew, Reed, Adams, White, Taylor, Claiborne, they would never allow this. Fulton, I'm going to keep Stingley out of it because he gave up. But, I mean.
No, you're right. I mean, look, Blake, part of it for me just thinks that it's the football gods doing this to all of us.
No, because I hate to – I'm not admit. This is the opposite Les Miles.
Right. No, I truly do believe there is some kind of football god out there that says, look, we gave you all those guys you just mentioned all around the same time. And, you know, when Tyron and those guys left, guess what? Here comes Jamal Adams. When Jamal Adams and them left, oh, here comes Derek Stingley. It was just one after another elite guy. And now the football god said, look, we're just going to make all the DBs you bring in terrible. We're not going to make them terrible. We're going to, when they don't work out, they're going to transfer to non-Power 5 schools. It's crazy. It's very bizarre to see how bad they are. Now, I understand the chat is killing me for defending House. That's perfectly fine. Okay, that's perfectly fine. Because in a perfect world, I would just trash them and say, hey, I told you to be weary, because at the time when I released that video was you don't know anything, whatever. And look, I get some things right, I get some things wrong, or whatever. Okay, I'm going to give you a hotter take. Why not look into some of these receivers as DBs? Why not try something? Okay,
like Brian.
Yes. Okay. Look. All right. One of my great friends is Ron Brooks. Okay. So Ron is an awesome guy. He's the most chill guy in the world. When he got to LSU, he was a receiver. Mm-hmm. Okay. He was a freaking wide receiver. And obviously, you know, he was the number 6 guy in the 2011 defense, and he had the most pick sixes on that defense. So he was incredible and played in the NFL 5 years. There's so many guys. Chris Abrams-Drain was the best DB on Missouri. He was committed to LSU as a receiver, got to Missouri, switched to DB. He was fantastic at times versus us. Look into somebody, and look, the gap from what elite corners in the NFL make versus what elite wide receivers make isn't really a whole lot. Okay, so you've got to try something. And I would not say this, Blake, if the corner play wasn't code red alert bad. But there might be somebody. The guy that I think would be a great DB is Kyron Lacey, but I don't want to take him out of being a receiver because he had his best game this past weekend versus
he blocked
Missouri.
his ass off.
Yeah, he played so freaking hard, and I've been okay. Now that's a stretch pause. That is a stretch pause, but my friend Pierce, he might be in here, made the perfect reference. Kyron Lacey's not so physical. I mean, he is so physical. But the perfect sign that Kyron Lacey could be a DB is that he can't catch. So is that not right? Is that not right? I
had a crucial catch across the sidelines on Saturday.
Yes, exactly. And he was the only receiver this past weekend who didn't have a drop. So and obviously I'm joking. I think Kyron Lacey is a great wide receiver. He's done a lot of his blocking this game was Hines Ward level good. But I think he would be an elite press man physical corner. Either way, I am open to trying anything at this point when it comes to corner.
Last one. Oh, we got to roll. John Sidley Butler with a $10 super chat says, Blake, what will the effect of Tigers returning to Tiger Stadium? I think massive. I think it gives them some boost defensively. And he says, Carter, is there a home game effect number in your database? Is home advantage worth 7 or 10 points? It's usually worth 3. Thank you, John.
Right.
For the chat.
Yeah. Shout out Sibley.
Well, in Seattle, I mean, basically it's Seattle. Oregon and Washington's a pick 'em. And Washington is -3 because they're at home.
Here's why I think going back home is going to be so big. Is that now?
That's what she said.
I knew you were going to do it. I knew you were going to do it. Okay. So going into the Arkansas game, Blake, Jayden Daniels wasn't the Jayden Daniels that he is now, right? And you got to keep in mind that the first half was rough, okay? Now that LSU fans see how truly special Jayden Daniels is, the home crowd reaction to elite quarterback play at LSU is going to be spectacular. When they announce Jayden Daniels as a starting quarterback, the roar is going to be that. It's going to erupt because we're starting to see something truly special. So Jayden put his body on the line. I know you saw that viral video of all the hits he's taken. I don't care what anyone says. If you play sports, you know that he's playing through a lot of pain. There's some other guys playing through a lot of pain right now. I won't get into all that tonight, but he's pushing through for this team. Now, he needs to do a better job not taking these hits, but we all know that. He knows that. But gosh darn it, it is going to be so loud when they announce